So the final speaker of the session is Susan Singer, who is the Lawrence McKinley Gould Professor in the Biology and Cognitive Science Departments at Carleton College. And she is currently serving as Director of the National Science Foundation's Division of Undergraduate Education.
It's great to be here. So I live in this wonderful microcosm of convergence every day where the program officers I work with are engineers, physical scientists, life scientists, mathematicians, and social scientists. And we spend every day trying to figure out how we can get convergence that enhances undergraduate education and still respects and supports very important distinct disciplinary differences. However, that's not the hat I'm wearing for my comments right now, so I just wanted to be very clear about that, what I want to share with you are my experiences on the faculty at Carleton College for, I guess, 28 years now. And as I was putting my comments together, I actually was walking past the Koch Center, the Whitehead, and the Broad about a week ago, and like many of you might wonder, so what do liberal arts colleges and perhaps liberal education, which is distinct from and extends far beyond the liberal arts colleges, what does that have to offer to the conversation of convergence? And I think in many ways it's actually what convergence is all about, all these different examples, perspectives coming together. But more specifically, it strikes me there are at least two attributes of the liberal arts colleges that make them really interesting in terms of convergence. One is the disproportionate number of graduates from these type of institutions that go on to receive PhDs. And it seems that then is a responsibility of these institutions to be sure that we're inculcating a mindset and experience with this world of convergence, so then they end up in all of these wonderful programs that my colleagues have been talking about. They're ready to take full advantage. Also, when you look at the kind of research that goes on in these institutions, faculty have to be creative in perhaps slightly different ways than at larger institutions, because the quality of the research is just as good, but the pace is slower because you're working with different kinds of researchers. And there's some very interesting things that happen when people begin to work on those edges and you get complementary research. And I would think that folks at these institutions are wonderful partners, having a lot of creativity to add. Also, just the structure, and I'm going to push a lot on mindset and structure in my talk and give more of an overview, that I think that the structure of these institutions gives folks a little more space for some kinds of risk-taking and creativity, because your entire career does not hinge on bringing in the maximum amount of dollars. It depends on being able to do and accomplish high-quality scholarly work. So then I tried to also identify key features that are important in these places. And one, this goes back to work that emerged in the mid-'80s, the Oberlin report, but really the importance of the integration of research and education. And it's a bit of a survival strategy, right? So coherence and efficacy support sustained research. If you can, bring your students in through class, you can bring your ideas into the classroom and think about it, there's just a wonderful synergy. Also, there's an opportunity to educate for convergence. And there's a session coming up this afternoon on educating for convergence. You've heard several remarks about how influential the institutes have been at some of these other places. Okay, so the integration of research and education is one key feature. And I think the other is the integration of thinking and learning across all the disciplines, which is a core value of liberal education. So that goes way beyond this type of institution, but it's particularly cherished here. Just by way of example, the pictures here, this is a 1910 Art Deco middle school that our tiny town in the Midwest outgrew. Carleton bought it. It's now the White Center for Creativity. I teach my intro bio in a scale-up room. There's dance classes. There's all sorts of really high-end IT spaces, community gathering spaces, and it was intentionally constructed to bring together everybody across campus in different areas so you bump into each other. So the teaching forms the core of it. Our Learning and Teaching Center is there. But the history is deep, so I just wanted to share this quote with you. Larry Gould, an Antarctic explorer of some renown, was Carleton president for quite an extended period of time. And this is just a quote from his inaugural address that really pretty much even today captures the tenor of the institution. And so as we talk a lot about integration among science and math and engineering, there's a lot to be gained by bringing in the social sciences, the humanities, and the arts. And I think that's a unique feature that as we look at these schools, because of the scale, right? Our whole institution is the size of some of these institutes that you're describing. And just like my division at NSF, where everybody bumps into each other every day because we're in the same physical space, there's something about that space that others have been commenting on, too, that lead to these natural interactions. And because I'm from the Midwest, I just needed a pictorial representation of what Anne has been describing. And want now to focus on actually the culture. And I think one of the key things which you're seeing in your institutes, but we see across our whole college, is the shared vision. So Mike Rocco is very involved in NBIC reports and the new version that just came out in 2013. And I particularly love, this is Mike's drawing that's in that volume that's coming out, that extends Stokes Quadrant to this vision-inspired basic research, right? Anne was saying how, you know, we really want to be in this quadrant as much as possible. I think Mike has something here in terms of this broader vision. We don't want to do something just that's useful today, but we really want to be moving towards a vision we don't even fully understand. And I think that then translates into the environment you create. So this is one of our last capital campaigns was the Consciously Creative Campus. We were trying to get away from Northfield as a town of cows, colleges, and contentment, be a little more sophisticated. We don't have institutes. We're a small, nimble institution. We have 1,800 students. These are a whole bunch of initiatives that we have, and the letters aren't important here. What I wanted to convey to you is that if we're doing something in the arts, or we're doing the one acronym that will become, I'll refer back to, is the Center for Interdisciplinary Science and Math right here. But we work across these initiatives, and members of the faculty are involved in many of these, and it's not unusual to be working with a classicist and a philosopher and a physicist and a chemist. I'm a biologist who started out as an engineer. So certainly this shared vision is important, but where does it come from? And so we have a tradition of inclusive strategic planning. We've just finished our latest strategic plan just a few months back. And it's set up so everyone is involved, not just students, not just administrators and faculty, but we even have custodians that are involved. People own Carleton, and when you walk on the campus, you can feel it. I've also felt that same thing when you walk on the University of Oklahoma campus. So again, it's not unique to these type of schools. The other thing is how you do leadership development. And we have a model that is not unique, but we have all sorts of 3-year rotating positions, even our associate dean positions, which are one step down from the chief academic officer. And the result is you have this tremendous leadership capacity across the college. The trick is everyone has to pack their ego at the door, right? Because we don't have this climate that it's going to be one person's institute. And I think that's had some real positive outcomes. We have an elected faculty committee that looks at high rigor requests so that we maximize the intersections and we don't miss an opportunity. And we have, I'm really proud of our tenure and promotion policies that value all the kinds of things that Anne was pointing out in her comments. And we have this incredibly robust career-long professional development from new faculty through senior faculty. You can't go through promotion without having gone through a number of years of professional development where your department, senior faculty are involved, figuring out what you need to move ahead. And then we have hubs where faculty and staff come together. Our Learning and Teaching Center isn't just about how to be a good teacher. It's a faculty scholarship center. I go to great talks by art historians. And then we have, as I showed in that earlier slide, we have a lot of large campus-wide initiatives. They're grant funded, and the value of the grant aspect is they're built in, they have this natural lifespan, and we decide at the end whether or not they're sufficiently robust to integrate into the curriculum. And actually most of them have, because they've been chosen very carefully and many are involved. So I want to close with an example of what this might look like, right? So here we've got an institutional vision, we've got the supportive culture, and as everybody points out, funding is essential. I put the research piece I'm involved in the middle because I could draw the arrows because I knew what was going on. This isn't necessarily the best example of convergence. We work on legume genomics in terms of mixed prairie for spin fuel and also because of the food applications. Remember, I live in the Midwest. But the role of the Howard Hughes Medical Institute, we've had every single institutional grant they've offered since the 80s, and it's forced this kind of strategic planning and buy-in that really has shifted us. So the granting can leverage it if it's thoughtfully done. And we work with all sorts of folks from the outside, other small colleges. But the key thing I want you to take away from this, besides all the arrows going every which way, is you can have a research path, but it's informed by all of the research that's going on in other areas and by a lot of education research. And you end up with education research, you end up with curriculum, and you end up with terrific disciplinary research, but it's all of a whole. So I challenge you to think about it in that way. Thanks.
Any quick questions for Susan?
Not a question, but a comment. Thank you so much, Susan, for an important presentation. I have an unusual, unexpected analogy, but it's from the field of digital humanities, where I spend a lot of time working. And when NITELY, which is the National Institute for Technology and Liberal Education, when they studied what liberal arts institutions have to do, since they're often outside the loop, it's more well-heeled research centers, they discovered that not only, as you said, that integration was one of the key values of these kinds of institutions, but also pedagogy. And this really touches on something we talked about, some members of the committee talked about last night at dinner, that we need to think about teaching teachers. And it's quite striking that when Diana Roten did a study of the IGERTS program, she found that graduate students were often the glue that went between the professors. I was reminded when Carla was speaking of the students putting together committees, that very often they're helping those faculty in a lot of institutions figure out how to do the integration piece. So it's a very important thing for us to be remembering here. So thank you very much for calling our attention to that, and then we can reinforce that by thinking about pedagogy as a central value that ought to be brought into the research process too.
And pedagogy informed by an evidence base. Pedagogy informed by the evidence base, evidence-based and evidence building.